Back in 1989, Motley Crue released their most successful album of their career. They had a #1 album and they sold over 6 million copies. But that was 35 years ago, so I wonder, was it really that good? In this video, I will discuss Dr. Feelgood. I have been a fan of this band for close to 40 years, and I've seen them rise to superstardom, and I've seen them go completely downhill. I will be talking about some of the events leading up to the album, and then I'll talk about the songs in order to make my final determination. Was it really that good? Back in the 80s, Motley Crue were living life on the wild side, no pun intended. This caused them to get into a lot of trouble. In 1984, Vince Neil was involved in a head-on collision that killed his passenger, Nicholas Razzle Dingley, the drummer of Hanoi Rocks. That didn't stop the band though. They continued with their decadent lifestyle. 2 years later, in 1986, Nikki Sixx suffered a near-fatal heroin overdose. Then a year later, he suffered another one when this time he was declared dead, but was soon revived with 2 shots of adrenaline. They wrote a song about that, which I'll talk about later, but they couldn't keep up with that lifestyle, so the band manager staged an intervention and sent them to rehab. Now, the newly sober band was ready to make the album of their career, Dr. Feelgood, and they found a new producer to make the album, who is Bob Rock. Found the band to be very difficult to work with. They may have been sober, but they still had that attitude. So Bob Rock decided to have each member record their parts separately. After the recording process was over, they released the album Dr. Feelgood. The album made an impression on someone you might not have expected, Lars Ulrich. So afterwards, he was inspired to have Bob Rock produce their next album, which would be the Black Album, but that's another story. Now let's talk about the music. They released their first single on August 28, 1989. It was the album's title track. I remember the song very well. If I remember correctly, I think I watched the premiere on MTV's Headbangers Ball. This was their only single to achieve the gold status. The song is about the LA Sunset Strip and tells the story of a drug dealer named Dr. Feelgood. The song sounded different than their previous work. It had that thick bass guitar line in the intro, had more of a funky groove. The song became their first top 10 hit. It reached number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100. It is still their highest selling single and was certified gold. They followed this up with another single called Kickstart My Heart. This song was written by Nikki Sixx and was inspired by his near-fatal drug overdose. At first, he was reluctant to share the song with the band, but they loved it, so they encouraged him to complete the song. The phrase "Kickstart My Heart" is a reference to the time when the paramedics had to give him 2 shots of adrenaline. They recorded a music video for this, showing a live performance at the Whiskey A Go-Go. The single was not a major hit, but it did pretty well. It reached number 27 on the Billboard Hot 100. But now, it was time for the band to do what most metal bands did in the 80s. It was time for them to play the ace in their deck. They decided to release the power ballad. It was called Without You. The song had Mick Mars playing a steel guitar during the intro. The song is about Tommy Lee's relationship with Heather Locklear. They shot a music video at the Grand 1984 Opera House in Galveston, Texas. The video was somewhat of a surreal music video. It had various abstract images, a live jaguar, a violin ensemble. The song was a hit and it landed their second top 10 hit. It peaked at number 8 on the Billboard Hot 100. Then they decided to play their other ace in their hand and release another power ballad, Don't Go Away Mad, Just Go Away. This one did pretty well. It reached number 19 on the Billboard Hot 100. According to Nikki Sixx, he got the idea from a movie line, but he couldn't remember what was the name of the movie, although he might have been thinking of the song Just Go Away by Blondie from their Parallel Lines album from 1978. But the song also makes a reference to their older song, Too Young to Fall in Love, in the lyrics. So if you listen to the song, you can hear them mention that. The music video shows Vince Neil leaving New York City to join his bandmates in Los Angeles for a rehearsal. They released one more single that was Same Old Situation, or SOS. The song was not as successful as some of the previous singles. It peaked at number 78 on the Billboard Hot 100. The song was kind of a taboo subject for the 80s, although if it had been released today, it probably would have been used as the theme song of a Disney Plus Star Wars miniseries. But what's the song about? The song tells a story about a boy meeting 2 girls, and in the end, the 2 women end up together. So I kind of wonder, made me think, I wonder if the writers of the series Friends were inspired by this when they wrote the Ross, Carol, and Susan storyline, but that's a different story. But the video was shot during a concert at the Alpine Valley Music Theater and had lots of guest stars such as Steven Tyler, Bryan Adams, and Jack Blades. Now, as for the rest of the album, there are a few more album tracks. The album starts with a short intro track called TNT Terror in Tinseltown. Now, what's interesting about this track is the song features a sample of a woman saying, "Dr. Davis, telephone, please." And this was the same sample used by the band Queensryche for the song Eyes of a Stranger, which was off their album Operation Mindcrime, which was released 1 year prior. Now, I must have listened to both of these albums hundreds of times, and I never noticed it until now, but I found it doing my research. So now you know, and you learn some trivia watching my videos. As for the album cuts, there's a song called Slice of Your Pie. This has some blues rock guitar in the intro, and I think the song is not too bad. It has a cool foot-stomping rhythm and a memorable guitar riff. The song had lyrics that were filled with sexual innuendos. Now that I think of it, I think the band Warrant might have took the same idea for their song Cherry Pie, which would come out a year later. Now here's another interesting fact. The ending was inspired by the song She's So Heavy from the Beatles' Abbey Road album. It kind of has like a similar rhythm to it. Then there's the song Rattlesnake Shake. And if this sounds familiar, it's because Skid Row had a song with the same name on their debut album released maybe a couple months prior to this. But they are different songs, so I'll be honest with you. I think this is one of the weaker tracks. I think they were trying to go for this Guns N' Roses type of sound, but I don't think the song is that great. Maybe it was just the use of that honky-tonk piano and the horns. But I don't know. I didn't like the song that much. There's another album track called Sticky Sweet, and if you remember the three famous people I mentioned doing backing vocals on SOS, they're on this track as well. The lyrics were similar to Slice of Your Pie. The song is not too bad. I like the guitar playing on the song. They seem to be going for more of a straightforward approach. Then there was a song She Goes Down, and I don't need to tell you what that was about, so I also think it's one of the weaker songs. But the song has some backing vocals by two members of Cheap Trick, Robin Zander and Rick Nielsen. So now to answer the question, was it really that good? I would say it's an enjoyable album. But when it comes to Motley Crue, I would definitely prefer listening to their first album, Too Fast for Love, or their second album, Shout at the Devil. I don't go back to this one that much, but I listened to it again. And I think it's still pretty good, but it also sounds kind of dated. I think they were going for that particular sound of the late 80s, and I would kind of compare it to like Metallica's Black Album, but they went out with the aim of creating an album that can be accepted by the masses while at the same time not completely straying from the sound. And I think they achieved part of it, but I think the problem with this album is that it doesn't hold up as well as the first two albums, or even Metallica's Black Album holds up better than this. But I'd probably still rank it in the top 5, and I'll say it's probably their last good album, not counting the self-titled with John Corabi, but that seems to be a divisive one. People either love it or hate it, but I actually like the Corabi album. But if you count the Vince Neil albums, it's the last good album. So that's all. Let me know what you think of Motley Crue's Dr. Feelgood. Check out this video right here. I did that of Shout at the Devil for its anniversary, which was from last year. Thanks for watching. Please like this video. It helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe if you're not already. I do rock and metal reviews, rankings, and more, and I do classic album reviews. So I will see you in the next one.